welcome to another episode of Gossip Finance. I'm Alicia Stinger.
And I'm Duncan Sandlin, and today we're going to talk a little bit about purchasing cars and how that works and some of the strategies in car insurance. We do have a couple corrections from our last episode where we talked about kind of the misnomer that goes around in finance about wealth being equal to, or success being equal to how intelligent or capable you are.
Worthington's Law.
Yeah, Worthington's Law, right? And there was some confusion from people, so I'm going to clarify some stuff real quick. The first is I have to make a quick correction on this. So we did this clip from Ben Shapiro on a Brookings Institute study. I said it was Berkeley, but it was actually the Brookings Institute. But I want to clarify this because I think this got confused, and I appreciate to the person who caught me on this. How not to be poor, and why being poor is all on you.
Here are the three rules. You want to be rich in America? You want to do well in America? You want to put aside the whining about the system? Again, you point out to me an individual instance of racism, I will stand next to you and fight it. But if you want to whine about America, no good. Okay, here are the three rules that you need to fulfill as a person before you can start complaining about your life failures being the result of somebody else's actions. Number one, you need to finish high school. Number two, you need to get married before you have babies. Number three, you need to get a job. That's it.
Okay, so that was pretty much the gist of it. So the confusion was this. So it was the Brookings Institute, which is a think tank, and they're kind of more center-left of a think tank that came up with that. And when they came up with it, their suggestion was that if we can get more people to do these things, then we'll have less poverty, right? But they did not attribute these things to causing poverty in their study, which is kind of what he was doing. And in that case, he was doing that. He did this for years, and you can go back and look, Ben Shapiro, success, whatever it is, 3 things for success. And he will do this every time because he mostly is doing it to say systemic racism isn't a problem, right? Because disproportionately Black and Hispanic people and Native American people tend to be more poor. But he's like, but it's not because of systemic racism, it's because they made bad choices. That's the argument he's making. So if these people
trying to use this study to support what he's saying.
Right. Now what ended up happening was the Brookings Institute study got kind of tagged because it wasn't a great sample. And the sample took place in 2007 at the peak right before the Great Recession. So the data would have been very different the following 2 years, right? Well, what happened was
a lot of people that were in really good financial positions then maybe were not 2 years later. So
right, plus the size of the sample. So they found that, and this has been pretty consistent, about 2%. If you do all 3 things, about 2% of people who do all 3 things are poor, or fall into that poor category, right? And people that do none of those things, it's like 76% fall into the poor category. And then there's a, in between. But what you've done is you've broken it down into the 4 categories. People do all 3, 2, 1, 0, right? The number of people that do 0 was less, even though it's 76%, it sounds like a big number. It was less people than the 2% that did all 3 things and were still poor. Right. So example, if I have 1,000 people that did all 3 things, 2% is 20 people. And then if I took 4 people who did none of those things and 3 of them were poor, well, 75%, right? But it's one person versus, right? So that's kind of what the problem with the initial study was. Well, another think tank called the AEI, the American Enterprise Institute, who's more center-right, they picked it up, and there's 2 professors, or I don't know, professors, but people there, scholars, whatever you want to call them. What were they called? The Wilcox and Wang. And this has been their sort of baby ever since, and they get a lot of money for this. Well, AEIs had to back off this, and they tried to come back. But they had to back off the point of, well, yeah, there is a correlation between people that do these things and people that are poor, are successful, right, or not poor, at least. What they had to back off was there's no cause. So people don't use it. You don't see conservatives use this as much anymore because there's no causal relationship. And if you use it correctly and go, well, there's no cause, that it's like, okay, well, people that don't have children too early or before marriage, right? Finish high school and are able to get a job. Well, those are things that if you wanted to improve that, we'd put more money into schools, put more money into sex education and contraception. We'd have to put more money into job placement or creating jobs or, I don't know, raising minimum wage, stuff like that, right? Which, of course, conservatives don't want to do any of those things. So if you use the study correctly, it doesn't say what they want it to say. So they've pretty much backed off of it. And I just wanted to do a quick point on this. So this is the majority report with Sam Cedar going through the Wilcox-Wang study. They were arguing with a guy on the phone, and he's brought this up. And this is back in 2019, and they're finding this out in real time, which is kind of funny. So let's see. Oh, I got to turn the sound.
Oh, wait a second. Late breaking. We have a late breaking.
So this, you're appealing to emotion.
Let me appeal to the American Enterprise Institute. Hold on. Josh, we got some late breaking facts. We got some late breaking facts on your AEI success sequence. What happened?
So they've backed off the correlation and causation thing of like, you can just do this as a get out. So here's a choice phrase. Looked at this way, the elements of the success sequence are less the cause of a good life than markers of such life already underway. So structural things like being able to finish high school, for instance, means that you already have a life that can get you through high school. And there are certain things like, and talk about like moving across the country, financially speaking, if you're...
So, as you can see, that's been thoroughly debunked many, many times. That was kind of my point. Yet you still see people like Dave Ramsey using it all the time. And people use it in finance as if it's an actual thing. And that was what we were trying to debunk. So we appreciate to the commenter who let us know that it wasn't Berkeley, it was the Brookings Institute. That was my bad. And I just wanted to clarify what was said. So let's go into another thing. So we did the end of the show. We were trying to wrap up that whole argument about the Worthington's Law, wealth and poverty, right? But wealthy does not necessarily equal better than, like a lot of people believe, right? Like your wealth is a sign of your intelligence or success. And we were looking at the Money Guy show, and I'm just going to show this clip real quick, and I want to clarify what our argument was because I think it got confused by a lot of people. It's the Money Guy show, and they're going to talk about a clip where a guy's talking about Dave Ramsey.
Dave Ramsey's a freaking moron. But he's a genius for poor people who don't have discipline. If you don't want to become wealthy, follow Dave Ramsey. If you just want to save your money and die poor, and you have no self-discipline, be poor. Follow Dave Ramsey and be poor. And the reason I say that is he says pay cash for everything, don't have any debt, and that's what I grew up with. Like if you can pay off your house, can you imagine paying off your house not having a mortgage payment? That's the stupidest thing you could ever do. Can you imagine paying cash for a car? How cool would it be to pay? No, that's terrible. It's a terrible financial decision.
We're in this society now where it seems like extremes rule everything. That's all that's on air. That's all that seems that works. But that's not the reality of life. I mean, I will say Dave is definitely on one side of, hey, let's get rid of all the debt as fast as possible. But then I would say they're on the other side, which is saying, never pay off your debt. Take advantage of the low interest rates and go invest it, and you'll...
Okay, so I'm not saying that they're being deceitful in any way, intentionally, but it is sort of deceitful, and anybody can sort of be deceitful without lying, right? For example, Lacey could say something like, well, 10 years ago, when Obama became president, and I could go, well, wait, Lacey, he became president back in 2008, started in 2009. It was more than 10 years ago. And you'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. But what I was going to say, I'm like, whoa, you're just going to skip past that? You don't even know when he became president, right? I'm not lying, but what I'm implying here is that Lacey doesn't know what she's talking about, which isn't necessarily true. So I'm being deceitful to try and formulate an argument. The other way you can do it is by omission, right? Like if a guy is cheating on his wife and comes home late from work, she's like, what were you doing? He's like, well, I had some things to do around the office. It's not a lie. It's just not the whole truth, right? So he's being deceitful by omission. So
Great example. Great example.
Right, but I'm just saying. But that's the problem, and that was the problem we're trying to make with this concept of wealth is somehow a status of your intelligence or your ability, right? How smart you are, how good you are as a person, all that stuff. That gets conflated a lot, and especially in American society, right? So the TikToker's making a point, okay? If you're poor and you're paying off all your debts, that to be detrimental is kind of the point he's making, to make it real simple, right? And he's saying that's stupid, and that's his argument. Now, we could argue back and forth, but here's the deal. If you're paying your debts, there's only 4 things you can really do. I mean, forgetting consolidation or refinancing, there's 4 things. You can either not pay it, in which case, like in a mortgage, it's going to go into foreclosure. So I don't think he's suggesting that. I'm positive he's not suggesting that. You can pay less than the amount you owe every month, in which case you're kind of in the same boat. I don't think he's suggesting that, right? So let's take those 2. So there's only 2 things he could possibly be suggesting. One is you either pay the amount you owe every month, or you pay more than that to pay it off sooner. Dave Ramsey, we know, will tell you pay more to pay it off sooner. He always does. It's in his books, right? So
right. It's the basis of his platform.
Exactly. The guy's point, though, is if you're poor and you're paying off sooner, you're putting more cash into it, you're going to bleed out your cash reserves, and you're not going to have any savings for when you get older, because you're not going to be able to throw as much cash at it and pay it down as quickly. Plus, you can also make an argument that if you saved, they'd have more money, and they would. The other thing about being poor is if you're in an emergency, you don't make enough money to make up for things quickly. So if you don't have savings to protect you, you're in a lot of trouble. Somebody gets sick, you lose your job, which is much more likely when you're lower middle class. You know, you get disability, because a lot of people who are lower middle class work physical jobs, right? So if you're throwing all your extra cash at the debt and not saving any of it, you have no emergency. That was the point.
Which in turn is likely to rack up the debt again anyway.
Well, and even worse.
Right. You'll rack up more debt when you were trying to get out of debt.
Right. Now, I'm not saying Brian Preston here is being intentionally deceitful. My point was that the thought process permeates, right? Even in the financial industry, where somebody as educated as he is, where he skips past that point. Well, we're talking about 2 different types of things. This guy's not making a in-depth analysis about financial planning. He's just saying if you're poor and you're throwing all your cash at the debt, your extra money, you have no security, right? It's kind of the argument that was being made. It wasn't being made well, but it was the argument.
And it sounded to me like the money guys were, if I understood them correctly, suggesting that what he was saying, the TikToker, was on an extreme opposite of Dave Ramsey. And I'm not sure that he really was being extreme. We haven't heard enough of what that particular person's platform is to know for sure, but no. I didn't necessarily think that he was saying not to give any attention to paying off debt or paying it off early. Like, I don't right. think he said that, at least not the part we listened to. No. I think he was kind of trying to highlight the idea that you just mentioned about, if you give all of your attention to paying off debt and do not create an emergency savings in the process or do anything toward retirement, to lose all of that time and don't have an emergency savings, about like how that would be detrimental. I feel like that was, what he was maybe trying to highlight, which isn't necessarily taking such an extreme position.
No, and I think it's a very simple argument that's pretty bulletproof. I mean, it's just a fact. If you're lower income, right? What happens, though, is when you get to Brian Preston gets to it, he ignores the income spectrum completely. And he just goes, well, you could do it either way, but that only applies if you're upper middle class or middle class or higher and you make good money. So what he said isn't untrue. It's very true. It is a spectrum. I mean, you could pay it off early or not. It's kind of going to be a fairly nominal difference, right? If you're wealthy.
Right, and let's also be honest that between those 2 points, there's a whole range of degree of paying it off early, right? So take a 30-year fixed, you decide to purchase a home in your mid-40s and you say this is a 30-year fixed, so 30 years, if I really pay it off over 30 years, I'm already in my mid-70s by that time. I don't really want that to be my situation. I definitely want to pay it off early. Now, there's the person who's like, I'm going to pay this thing off in 10 years, and there's the person who's like, I just want to make sure I pay it off by the time I'm in my mid-60s.
Right. But
so there's a whole range of how much you're trying to pay off debt, how quickly.
Right, but the problem...
So it's not just you're doing it early or you're not doing it early. That's my point.
Well, the problem I have with that analysis even is that you're ignoring what the person's income is. You're ignoring the person's situation, which is what he does, where he's like, well, it could be either way and it really depends and you got to factor risk and stuff. It's like, that's not untrue. But what he's not doing is acknowledging, yeah, but if you're poor and you're listening to Dave Ramsey, it's probably detrimental. Which is that guy's point. If you're listening to that strategy and you're poor, it's probably going to hurt you. Right? It puts you at a lot more risk. But he can't go against Dave because he wants to, they have a relationship with Dave, right? But he can't, so he doesn't acknowledge the poor thing. Now, I'm not saying he does it intentionally to be deceitful, but what ends up happening is he ignores the argument and goes into, well, it's really a range if we take in all people, which wasn't the argument. And that was my point. And that's why it gets convoluted, because he's not acknowledging the actual problem. He's just ignoring it and going somewhere else. So that was my whole argument with that. And people can, yell and scream at us later about how bad our analysis was of that conversation. But getting into, we're just going to wrap up real quick with that, with Elon Musk and Twitter talking about how wealth equals intelligence and capability and all that stuff. I think Elon Musk has proved that's not entirely the case here. So I don't know if you've been following the Twitter stuff very much, or
only minimally.
Okay.
Only minimally.
Okay. So you're gonna like this. So the recent news was they just reinstated Trump's Twitter account, so we can look forward to that again for the next election cycle. So recently, I mean, so here's sort of the nuts and bolts of what happened. I don't know what Elon Musk's intention was behind Twitter, behind buying Twitter. It could have been that he thought he could turn it around or make more money off of it than they were. Okay, so we had a little technical issue there. It's fixed now. So we're back.
And we're back.
And nobody died. Thank God.
All right, so let's talk about the Twitterverse.
Okay, so the Twitter thing. So I wanted to give a simple sort of example on how these sort of business transactions work for people who've never owned or bought a business. I've done it with smaller businesses, not with anything this size, right? So this has got a lot more moving parts to it. So I'm going to just ultra simplify this. Let's say Alacius has her own little tech company and she's making, $1 million a year gross, but after expenses, taxes, employees, all that stuff, she's probably taking home, gross or net profit, right? Her profit is probably about $100,000 a year. Okay. And that'll grow a little bit over time, but let's say over 10 years, we assume that'll grow some, so she'll make at least $1 million, but probably like $1.5 million over 10 years from that business. Okay. I see that business, I want it. Whatever reason, I think I can do better, whatever. I have more resources. So I come to Lacey's and I say, all right, I want to buy your business. Now, what I would do is I would go, okay, I think it's worth $1.5 million to you over this time period. I would try to back it up to, what's that worth in today's dollars? And I would offer her something like, I'll offer you, it's worth whatever, say 600,000 in today's dollars. I'll offer you 750, something like that. Or I'll offer 600, whatever it is. Lacey still didn't say, oh, well, I'm willing to sell, but I want $1 million or whatever. We'd negotiate. Let's say we settle on $1 million, right? The next thing that would occur is, we'd have a letter of intent and all that jazz, but we'd have a contract. So Elacius and I agree to sell the business. She's going to want a contract. I'm going to want a contract. And the contract is going to say something like, I agree to buy the business for $1 million if you do all these things, so I can check out that it's legit and all these things come true, right? And so Elacius would have to provide me with taxes and books and all this stuff, compliance and employee stuff, whatever it is, that I want to know. And if she does everything on her end, I'd buy the business and it's done for the most part. I'm ultra simplifying this, but that's pretty much the process, right? Now, let's say Elacius doesn't keep up her end, doesn't give me that stuff. Well, then I'm going to back out of the deal, right? If she does do all that, though, and it does turn out that the business meets all the standards in the contract, and I say, well, I changed my mind, I don't want it, Elacius can now sue me in court and force me to buy the business for $1 million. This is essentially what happened to Elon Musk. Now, I don't know if he did this because he thought he could do better or he just wanted the publicity of saying, hey, I'm going to buy Twitter, because he's done that before with other stuff. But he comes in and the initial offer, and it was the final offer, was around $44 billion. It's a lot of money. And he's offered it to Twitter. Now, Twitter, in this example, I'll be Elon, and Elacius will be Twitter. At least it's your Twitter. You're the board of directors of Twitter. The last 12 years, 10 of those years, you've lost money. You are not in a successful, profiting business. And I show up and go, I'll offer you $44 billion for your company. Elacius is going to pretend like, oh, I don't know, man. I don't know if I could do it. And then she's going to say, okay, well, I probably can do something like that. And then she's going to immediately want me to sign the, God damn it. I'm going to have to do this. We're going to have to do this by hand. Sorry. I'll leave that part in. We've been having technical problems with our other computer. Anyway, so she's going to immediately go, okay, but I want a contract right now. Right? And I'm going to be like,
signy.
Right. I want an agreement. And Musk signed the agreement. Right? That I'll buy it if you do all these things. Well, then what he did for months was he was like, oh, well, you didn't do this. You didn't complete this. And da-da-da-da-da. When in fact, Twitter was doing everything. They actually went over and above what was in the contract. Why? Because they want $44 billion. Right? They're selling a lemon for, how much more than it's worth. I mean, God, why wouldn't you take $44 billion? You'd be stupid. Well, what ended up happening was Elon tried to back out, and they basically started legal action against him, and he pretty much caved in. Right? So there's a lot of issues going on with that whole situation where he's now in charge of Twitter. Twitter's hemorrhaging money to the tune of, I think it's like $120 million a year just on that. Plus what he owes. He just doesn't, he's worth hundreds of billions, but he doesn't have it liquid. So he's going to liquefy a lot of stuff to pay things. He's in the hole. He announced that he thinks Twitter might go bankrupt here in the next few months because they're hemorrhaging money so quickly. The other problem was when he got there, he immediately fired half the staff. So the 7,500 employees that are there, he fired 3,750 of them around that, right? Then, recently what he did was he said, well, I want you guys to go harder and work harder and do 70, 80-hour weeks and stuff like this. That didn't float, so people walked out. And now he's in really deep trouble. So I'm going to do this real quick. We'll go back to, where is it? Okay. So this is Anna Kasparian with the Young Turks. And they're just going to cover kind of just what I just said, but it's kind of funny. Oh, whoops. Let me get her sound.
Oh, I was kind of joking and with Musk making all sorts of bad decisions and how giddy I was about the destruction of Twitter, but I didn't really believe it until now. So apparently, remember, Musk gave his employees, whatever remains of the employees at Twitter, an ultimatum. Either you have to agree to be hardcore and work 80 hours a week, or you got to leave and you'll get paid 3 months severance. Well, it turns out that roughly 75% of the remaining 3,700 Twitter employees have not opted to be more hardcore, and they've decided to take the severance. So Twitter doesn't have the workforce necessary, the employees necessary to run.
Everybody's situation is different, but if I were one of those employees at Twitter, I think I probably would have taken the severance too, provided, if I had a bit of an emergency savings sitting there and maybe I'm thinking I can just find another job, just as easily, or maybe I was already wanting to do something different. I think rather than be more hardcore, aka take on more than one full-time job for your full-time pay, right? I think I would probably just do what most of their workforce did and take the severance.
Well, a lot of these people are computer engineers. It's not like they can't find another job. I mean, that's one of the most.
Or something in tech. There's so many different.
There's so much demand.
Tech-related jobs they can do.
There's so much demand for tech. And tech people, if you know anybody who's worked in tech, like my other business partner works in tech. He's never had a problem. And people always get on, they always switch jobs. They never stay at the same. Yeah, because they can. They can always take more money or get less hours or whatever they want. They have negotiating ability, right?
Really, it just makes me wonder what he was thinking. Like, I believe Elon Musk to be intelligent, and I would assume, what would he be thinking to? I feel like when he offered that 3-month severance, he really did not believe that many people would take it. I'm sure he believed some people would take it, but I'm assuming that he probably did not think that many people would take it. He probably thought that people would be afraid and want to keep their jobs.
I think he did a really good job marketing the idea of the electric car and Tesla. That's what I think he did really good at. Running Tesla, he didn't really. He had other people that were actually running the production, the day-to-day, the finances. But in the marketing sector, I think he's really good at marketing these things. The problem is Twitter is basically a big software company, but it's a giant house of cards. You have to have engineers constantly monitoring the system and making sure it doesn't crash or people aren't abusing it or it's not going to get hacked, because there's going to be people that want to hack Twitter. Can you look at how many people are on there, how much information is on there? Yeah, it's a hacker's dream, right? It's a gold mine. So you need a lot of people. So you got to understand, from the 7,500 employees they started out with a couple months ago when he took over, whatever it was, a month or two ago, it hasn't even been that long, right? They are now down to less than 1,000 employees. From 7,500 people running that company to less than 1,000. So when she says they don't have enough people, they don't have enough people. I'm surprised they still have 1,000. Plus, you got to figure.
For how long?
Plus, the other thing people forget is when you do those kind of big layoffs where you push people in severance like that, you're going to take a beating in unemployment. You're going to take a beating in wrongful termination, lawsuits. You're going to get eaten alive. You're going to spend, in this case, with that many people, probably billions in court over the next 2 or 3 years.
Not to mention the need to hire up again and the cost involved in training new employees. It's expensive to train new employees, and people don't think about that. So
and it's time
that's
consuming.
why employee retention
is such a big thing.
Regardless of what type of company, it really is a big thing, trying to, make turnover margins as small as possible, just for the bottom line involved in the resources it takes to train people to do the job.
Right. So just to go back to the kind of our whole thing about Elon Musk, his father owned I think the biggest emerald mine, or the second biggest emerald mine in apartheid South Africa. So he basically had African serfs digging his mines for him. That's how he made all his money. And then Elon makes his money through Tesla and whatnot, but he gets a contract under when Obama was president, which is how Tesla thrived, because Tesla was going under. And it was actually floated by taxpayer money to develop electric cars and car batteries. It wasn't because they were selling a ton of stuff. He was just really good at getting the money in grants. And that's how Tesla floated itself for a long time. But even Tesla doesn't make a ton of money. They do good, but they don't make a ton of money. Right? So this idea that he's, because he's wealthy equals he's some great businessman is not, the proof is not in the pudding on this one. Is kind of my point. Because he walks into Twitter and basically overpays for a company that's bleeding cash, right? By a lot. Now the company has added $13 billion of debt on top of that, right? Since he took over, and we're talking a couple months, right? The interest cost is $1 billion a year for Twitter. It's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money
for credit risk, and the cash flows, the amount of money Twitter makes, doesn't cover that. So if Elon Musk wants to keep this going, he's either going to have to pay for it out of his own pocket to keep the business going, or he's going to have to bankrupt or do something. So it's really kind of a dire situation right now for Twitter. I'm not saying they're going to go under. They probably won't, but it's not good. It is not good. So we're going to do that that'll wrap up our segment for now on being rich does not necessarily make you a better person or more capable.
And we'll all stay tuned to see whether or not he can pull Twitter out of the dire situation they're currently in.
Right.
I'm hoping that they can turn it around, but
gosh, so do I.
I mean, we'll be watching. I'm definitely rooting for them, but it doesn't look great.
No, it's not looking good right now.
And I would hate to be one of the 1,000 people left. My goodness, imagine how many people's jobs you're trying to do.
Yeah. Well, you probably sit there thinking to yourself right now, do I stay? Do I go? Do I look for something else? I'll bet you everybody's 1 foot out the door at this point. It's probably
I'm sure, because they probably don't feel terribly secure. I mean,
yeah, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
All right. So that was good. So for now, we're going to go into, we were going to talk about car purchasing. We thought that would be a nice little palate cleanser. So I just want to talk about some simple stuff. So when you buy a car, right, you can buy it with cash or you can buy it by taking on a loan. Okay. There are a couple ways you can take car loans. You can either take a personal loan, right, cash loan, which would be a personal loan, or you could take a title loan, which would be a car loan. So with a personal loan, you go to the bank, you apply for it, you qualify, they give you the cash. They give it to you in cash, right, or deposit in your account. So the benefit is you can spend that cash however you want. You don't have to spend it all on the car. You can spend part of it on the car, whatever.
So if they gave me a loan,
yeah,
that's a cash loan for $20,000 and I buy a $15,000 car, I can do whatever I want with the other $5,000.
Right. Anything you want to do. And you can get more flexible payments with a personal loan than you typically can with a car loan. You can do, most of them are 12, 24, 36 months. You can also you can go longer, but then you'll end up paying a lot more in interest payments.
So let me interject
before
we go into cons here. So another term for a cash loan might be a signature loan.
Mm-hmm.
When I worked in banking, they often called them signature loans because the only thing required is your signature.
Right.
They're not holding the title to your vehicle, or like with a mortgage, they're holding the title to your mortgage. It's literally like with a credit card, it's just your signature, and they're not holding on to anything of yours. There's nothing securing it. So it's not secured, and you're basically just signing for it. So that is, you could call it in the pro column that you're not necessarily having any of your assets held in order to secure that. And I just wanted to conceptually put that out there. That it's like that. Where it's different, obviously, from a credit card is it's not revolving, right? It's just a set amount when you do these types of loans. But the similarity being that there's no asset of yours that's securing that.
No, typically not. Sometimes you can do a personal loan where you have an asset securing it, but most of the time it's unsecured.
But it's
rare.
Not typical.
Yeah, it's rare.
Because otherwise they'll shuffle you into a different loan type generally.
Yeah. So but it's an unsecured loan, so there's nothing securing the loan, right?
Typically.
Yeah. For the bank, at least. So the cons are generally they have higher interest rates. Not always, but usually. Lending requirements tend to be a little bit tougher. You usually have to show taxes and show you have a job and all that stuff.
Again, because they're not securing it with anything on their end, right? They need to protect themselves by making sure they only qualify people they're really sure about.
You can pay. So like poor credit usually won't qualify. So you have to have good credit usually. Most people take out a title loan or a car loan. Okay. And then you can get those from the bank. You can get it from the dealer sometimes. But usually people get it from the dealer. But those loans work like that. I mean, they work like this. Instead of giving you cash, the bank buys the car and the bank holds the title until you pay off the loan. So that you don't really own the car, the bank owns the car. And then when you pay off the loan, the bank gives you the title and it's your car. The pros of this is that you get a lower interest rate because the bank it's a secured loan because they can always take the car if you don't pay. It's easier to obtain these with lower credit scores. And it's more convenient to get financing because you don't have to go jump through a lot of hoops, right? The negatives, if you don't have the title of the car, so it's not really your car, and it usually requires sort of an upfront deposit from you. So you usually have to make a down payment. Not always, but usually, right? Now, the benefits of this, and I wanted to get into this, is car loans tend to be simple interest versus compound interest, which is nice. So credit cards are compound interest kind of debt. So if I don't pay it off, right, the interest that accrues will accrue more interest. So it's exponential growth, right? So it's compound over time. As where with the simple interest loan, the interest does not accrue any more interest. You can only charge interest on the principal, the amount you borrow. So it becomes a real simple payment structure. So I just did a real easy one here. So if I took out, let's say, go ahead.
Let's just pause on this for a second. So when you're saying that, what you're saying is in a car loan, when the interest hits, it doesn't get piled on top of the remaining principal.
Right.
That's what happens on my credit card, but that's not what will happen on my auto loan.
Right.
So I'm still only going to pay interest on the original principal, and then obviously it's gone down a little with my payments, but they're not going to pile more interest on top of that I pay interest on.
Right.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're a little bit safer as far as loans go. Now, I just did a simple example, right? So simple interest, not compound. Example, let's say I bought a car, it was $45,000 and $31. And I did 10% down payment, so I paid $4,503. So the amount I financed, I loaned, was $40,528. So my loan payment, my simple interest payment would be $746.38 a month. That's what I'd pay on that car for, let's say, this would probably be like a 5-year loan or a 6-year loan. Oh, 5-year loan. Sorry. Yeah, but in compound, let's say I didn't pay this, I couldn't pay it 1 month. The interest that accrued on top of that would then start accruing interest on top of that. As where with a car loan, if I don't pay it 1 month and I catch up the next month or something, it doesn't accrue interest on the amount that accrued. So
it's not making it more expensive for you.
No.
In that situation.
No.
It doesn't change the amount that you end up paying.
No, I still pay the same amount. It doesn't really alter it. So that's that. So those are the kinds of the ways you can finance a car. You can do a personal loan, car loan. You can pay cash for the car. Kind of whatever floats your boat, whatever your situation is. The next things about owning a car, which is really important, is car insurance. Because it's the one thing I think people kind of forget, right? Because that's another cost to having the car, is you have to have car insurance. Liability insurance is mandatory in every state. So I'm going to go with, these are the 6 types of car insurance that you'll face, or that are offered. So liability, everybody has to have liability. Liability is bodily injury and property damage, but not to you, only to things that you cause to another person, right?
That's why people sue you when you hit them.
Right. So if I am driving along, right, and I've got my liability coverage, and that's all I've got, I just have my mandatory coverage. My like the low interest car loan stuff that they always pitch on TV. Get your car loan down and da 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 da. Well, what they're doing is they're cutting your coverage. So I'm driving around. I just have liability. I run into Lacey's car. Lacey's in her car, and Lacey gets hurt, and I get hurt, and there's a lot of damage to both cars. My liability coverage will cover Lacey's injuries probably and damage to her car, but it won't cover any damage to me or my car. So that coverage doesn't cover me. It covers something I do to somebody else.
Right. It protects other people from you.
Right. So liability is what's required by law. They're required that you protect other people from yourself, kind of thing. So other types of insurance that you should consider: uninsured or underinsured motorist. Okay, this is if I'm hit by somebody who doesn't have insurance or is underinsured. And some states do require this. And this is important because, let's say I'm driving and I hit Lacey, same scenario, but I don't have insurance. I'm driving without insurance, unlawfully, right? And Lacey's got medical bills now, and she's got damage to her car, and she can try to sue me, but I don't have any money. So what's going to happen to Lacey? Well, Lacey has uninsured, underinsured coverage. So her insurance,
which means my insurance company
will cover the damage.
Is going to be covering my tab.
Right. For my damages.
Right.
So that's a good one usually a good one to have, because it does happen. Comprehensive coverage covers things: theft, fire, hail, vandalism, stuff that happens to the car that, otherwise you wouldn't think about, right? It does have a deductible, meaning you have to, a deductible, for those of you who don't know, is if it's $1,000 damage to the car and you have a $500 deductible, that means you have to pay $500 in cash, and the insurance will pick up everything above that. So if it's $5,000 damage, you still pay the $500, but the insurance will pick up above that to whatever their limit is.
Right, and one of the selling points on these deductibles is, the high amount of coverage that gets offered once you've satisfied the deductible, but they will change what your monthly payment is based on how high of a deductible. So there could be kind of this game you're playing here of how high of a deductible can I afford, because my monthly payment, if I choose the $1,000 deductible, is going to be cheaper. But then I have a $1,000 deductible. So that's kind of an evaluation that people have to sort of make.
You have to figure it out. And I think it would too depend on the car, right? So if I have a beater car and I want to get comprehensive insurance, I don't know why I'd get comprehensive on a beater. It probably wouldn't matter. But let's say I had a lower price car. Like I bought a really nice used Buick for like $10,000, right? From my friend. And I wanted to get comprehensive coverage on it because I like the car. Well, let's say the car gets damaged, a tree falls on it, right? If my deductible, and it's $2,000, my deductible's $1,000, right? My monthly payment would probably be whatever, 50 or $60 for that extra comprehensive, right? But then I'd have to pay the 1,000 to get 1,000, right, to cover the car. Now, if I got my deductible down to like say $250, I get $1,750 to cover. I pay $250 and I get $1,750 to cover the damage. But my deductible payment would probably be close to really like $100 a month, or 110, whatever it is. So once again, it kind of depends on how much you want to cover the car. So Lacey made a good point there. It's just how much you really got to kind of weigh it. If you've got a really expensive car, you might want to get a lower deductible. Just it might be worth it.
You know, there's also an element of considering, you know, what kind of vehicle you have and how expensive parts are for it, because some types of vehicles it's more expensive to need to order certain parts for it than others too. Right. So knowing that kind of thing about your vehicle also can be helpful in making that decision in terms of how much coverage and what sort of deductible level you're comfortable with.
Right. And I want to cover this too, especially for younger people. Let's say you have $1,000 deductible and $2,000 damage is done to the car, right? The insurance will not cover the other $1,000 until you've paid the deductible. So you have to have $1,000 available to pay for that before the insurance will cover the other grand. So you got to make sure you can cover your deductible.
So this becomes an important point in terms of planning for your emergency savings within the rest of your personal finance situation, right? Because if I know I've chosen a deductible of a certain level, I need to make sure that my emergency savings always at least has that amount in there, because if I end up with a situation where I need to be tapping that insurance, then I want to make sure it can get paid right away.
Yeah. Well, this is one thing, and we'll go back to the money guy stuff that they do that I really like, that I thought because they do a lot of really smart things. And one of them is their whole thing is that your emergency savings should at least cover all of your deductibles of your insurance. And that's a real smart thing, because at least you're covered then if anything happens. So it's a really...
And if those things happen in combination, right?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
if I have the car thing and a medical thing happening at the same time, and I have two deductibles I need to meet, and then God forbid we throw in a dental thing, and that's got some sort of a thing to it too.
Right.
Yeah.
And then your house catches fire, and you never know. When it rains, it pours.
Unfortunately, I hate to just say things about luck in particular, but you know, sometimes bad luck happens in multiple, iterations before it's done.
Oh yeah. No, it can happen in spades.
Yeah.
This slide came out funny. Oh well. Anyway, so this is the other three. Look at that. I don't know why they came out different. That's weird. Anyway, so the fourth would be collision. So that would be anytime you like an accident with another vehicle or object. They can repair or replace the car after you pay the deductible. Lenders can require that. So that's not always a bad one to have, because sometimes something hits your car or you hit something.
So it will cover your own car.
Well, and it'll actually...
It covers else's, right?
No, it just covers your car.
Okay.
And
so
it'll...
you have to make sure your own car will be covered regardless.
And you got to check it, because it'll repair the car, or they can replace the car up to the fair market value of the car. So if your car gets totaled, collision will replace the car, or at least repair the car back to where it was, up to the market value. So you're not going to be without a car. So collision's a pretty good one to have. Medical payments are a good one to have. It covers you, any passengers in your car, or any family members, and that includes people you're living with. So if your boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, whatever, if they're driving your car for whatever reason, their car's in the shop, right? It covers some of their medical costs. But yeah, it covers a lot of the medical payments, and some states require it. The last one's personal injury. Only a few states have this. I don't know how many. It's like 10 or 12 have it, but this will cover also things like if somebody gets injured, medical costs also, but it'll cover childcare costs if they can't take care of their children and they have to send them to daycare. It'll cover loss of income from if you can't work. So it's comprehensive on that. So it's not a bad thing to have. It's just, it's just if you can get it. Right. So, so those are the types of insurance. Now, don't we all feel much, much safer and better that we know that? I know. Sexy stuff.
You know what? It might not be sexy, but it can be a little bit confusing because there are some of those types of insurance that sound like they're doing similar things, but there are key differences that are kind of important to note. So I do think kind of going over that is important.
Okay. What I did want to cover too is this. So Lacey does a lot of teaching on budgeting and how to do different budgeting strategies. So gas and maintenance and car payments, all these things go in. So buying a car adds a lot of things to your budget, and it's important. Several payments to think about. So if you'd be kind enough to elaborate a little bit about kind of what the different things that are added when you buy a car to your budget, and kind of how you should think about those.
So I tend to think about it in my mind as roughly 4 different payment categories have been added to my life, some of which are more, periodic. Right? So we obviously have the car payment if we didn't buy in cash. Right? So we have the car payment, and then we have the insurance payment, which we just discussed. Right. And then we have the gas payment, which is a series of payments, right? Unless you have a gas card or something you're using and paid at the end of the month. Right. But you have to pay for gas and the maintenance payment, and people leave that part out of their budget so frequently, and that's how they end up getting into debt. So it's absolutely critical that you budget something every month. I am a huge advocate of having multiple savings accounts. Organize your life how you like, but I really like having a separate savings account for things. Have one that is for maintenance, where you set an amount and you transfer into it every month so that you are covered when that happens. Because inevitably, there are going to be things that need to be repaired and just general maintenance that's going to need to be done. Right. Generally speaking, and you can go watch our video about budgeting that we have done.
Shoot. Sorry. Go ahead.
Feel free to go and watch that so you will be able to understand more clearly what categories I'm talking about. But within the budgeting system, I like to use the 30-50-20 budgeting plan. Yeah. I put all of those generally under my flexible spending category. I don't usually put that stuff under fixed. Some people might put their car payment under fixed, but it's easy to refinance and alter that. I put them under flexible because I feel like
let's go. It's kind
of
how you want it, how you feel like you should do it, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Some people want to put it under their fixed expenses, but I also have a lot of clients that refinance them so they can get them taken care of sooner, or this and that. They futz with them. So put it into which category you want. All of the other ones are very clearly just going to park under your flexible category.
Right. Yeah. Well, cool. Yeah, and then calculating gas is one of those things I think people get, because it's always in the news, right? Gas prices are up. Gas prices, inflation, whatever it is. And it's a big deal because if you work and you have to rely on your car. So kind of what I always kind of recommend on that is get a good sense. This is, if you're one of these people that wants to do this, because I used to drive a lot for work, because I would go to give meetings and presentations all the time when I first started out as a financial advisor. You're rarely in the office. Your office is your car, because you're driving around to all these different businesses and places, getting clients presenting. So I factored in, okay, well, what was the mileage in my car? So you have the little button, right? You fill up your card, you hit the little button to 0 to track the mileage. And then when you get down to nearly empty and you refill, okay, I got X amount of miles off of X amount of gas, right? Or X amount of gallons. And then you divide it and you figure what the gas price is. So I'm getting whatever 30 miles to the gallon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm using, I'm going this many miles a week on average. And then you figure it out. So I kind of figure, okay, well, this is what I figure I'm going to need, let's say 20 gallons of gas every week, which is a lot, but I'm just giving you an example from my background because I drove a lot. So if I need 20 gallons of gas a week and gas is $4 a gallon, I'm paying at least $80 a week that I got to budget for gasoline in the car. But now if gas has gone up to $6 or $7, it's like, right now I'm like, oh my gosh. So now that $80 is like, oh my gosh, now it's 120 or 140.
Right. That's where it definitely needs to be in the flexible part of your budget, because not only does the amount you drive potentially change with the things going on in your life, and the price of gasoline also changing. So
yeah,
that one goes up and down for sure.
Yeah, but it's one of those where if you rely on, I know I'm going to drive at least this much, right? You got to be prepared for, gosh, if it goes up $1 a gallon, it's going to start to get expensive. That's just why I understand. Everybody complains about it, and you can blame the president and all that stuff, but it's a lot of it has to do with OPEC and other things going on in the world.
Right, to think the president's in control of the gas prices. I mean, come on.
Wouldn't that be nice, though? Gas would always be like...
I mean, I kind of feel like the president would make the gas prices significantly better.
Wouldn't matter what president it was. If they could control it, it would always be $2 a gallon. Right? Because they want to get reelected.
All right, this is a weird to the side, but I have to say this. Did you know that in Venezuela you can get free gas? There are two different types of gas stations. One of them is the free gas station. You'll wait in line for that thing literally all day long.
Right.
But it's the free government gas.
Right.
Versus there's the gas that you can pay for.
Right.
I'm guessing the reason you would go there is the shorter line, probably.
Right.
But then, I mean, the crazy prices and stuff there.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is people don't understand is most gas stations, they don't make that much money on selling gas because the prices are so transparent everywhere. It's barely marked up, so they're not making that much money on the gas. So even if it's like, oh, it's $6.50, right? The gas station is probably paying $6.40 per gallon. So they're not making hardly anything. So most gas stations make their money on you going into the convenience store and buying
the coffee or
the candy bar, which is marked up by 2,000% because they bought that Snickers bar.
Buying the cigarettes, the beer.
Right. Yeah. Oh, cigarettes especially. So they got it for probably $2 or $3. You're paying $10 for those cigarettes. Right.
That's why all gas stations sell cigarettes, and they're probably not going to stop anytime soon because they're not making that markup on the gasoline.
Oh, and candy bars, they're charging you $1.25 or $1.50. They're probably getting them for 20 or 30 cents. So they make all their money. You'd be surprised. So now that we've done the car stuff, we're gonna do cage match. You want to do a car cage match?
Yeah. Okay. And I have to have my ringside commentary. Let's see if I know what they're gonna say.
Let me stretch a little.
Yeah.
Get ready.
Yeah.
Do it. So we're gonna do George Camel.
So we both get some wins here.
Yeah, we're gonna do George Camel and John Deloney on the Dave Ramsey Show talking about purchasing a car. So Jocko and Skippy, we're gonna see what they do. Do this.
I'm feeling pretty good about making a prediction here.
All right, here we go.
All right, let's see.
All right, John, we got to talk about something because it's on everyone's hearts and minds, and that is cars. Everyone's losing their minds. The car market has lost its mind.
Up in here.
Cars are not on my heart.
Cars are not on your heart and mind?
They're not on my heart and mind.
Well, that's too bad because we just covered it.
Are in the market for a car, and it's a very stressful time when you're trying to do it, especially with cash.
Okay, so you are currently purchasing one. I did recently, a few months ago. It was the strangest interaction I've ever had.
Well, I want to clarify this. Okay. So the Ramsey thing is they always buy cars with cash. They don't believe in financing. So let's call it, they're not going to talk about loans at all. Really.
Right. They're not going to put that on the table. So we're not going to be educating about loans or anything within this whole clip because it's just not a part of their protocol.
So they're just going to talk about cash. This is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They're going to talk about cash. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they'll talk about budgets or insurance or something. We haven't, quite gotten far enough on that yet. But this will be a straight cash purchase situation. And I'm going to guess they're probably going to highlight something about the current economic environment where car buying and selling is concerned. Talking about some of the post-COVID car pricing issues.
Sure.
With
it was supply and demand.
With supply and demand, and it sort of creating a situation where you have used car prices going quite a bit up just because of some of the crazy supply chain stuff and whatever. So they might get into that a little bit and about how that's made buying a used car way more complicated and more expensive.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see what they do. If they're doing a cash, I have a cash example we can use later.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be going cash and weirdness of buying a car.
Yeah, well, we can compare what they say versus what I did. So.
When it comes to transaction, it got to where I wrote a check and I was looking at the salesman and because it was like, hey, well, we need to talk to you about this and if you finance it here, and I said, look, dude, I got a check, and I felt like I was talking to my son. I said, I want to give you this. And I want you to give me that.
You have a thingy.
Right
I have
there.
money.
You have the key. I can see it. Just give me that, and I'll give you this. We gotta go through these meetings. And I said, I'm not gonna buy any of your special clear coats. I don't want any extended warranty. I just want that. Will you just take this? Can I just give you this? Can I just give you this, man? It was such an event that I ended up leaving. And then we called back, and I said, hey, how about this? Just bring it by. We literally a mile and a half down the road. Just drop it off here. I'll give you this giant check for it. Dude, it was easier to buy my house than it was to buy a car with cash. Wow. And you're in the middle of it now. Has it gotten worse?
Yeah, I just tried yesterday. And here's the thing.
Okay, so fill me in on this. Literally, American Ears
this article to you to prove what I'm experiencing.
Okay.
Wall Street Journal, here's the headline. Car dealerships don't want your cash.
Oh, there you go.
They want to give you a loan.
There you go.
Buyers say dealerships are pushing them to borrow because they make more money that way. The hot car market is giving them the opportunity.
So every time in history... if you'll pay with cash, it's actually cheaper.
Yeah.
We'll get the deal done faster. And now they're upcharging you, right?
Yes. And the numbers show this, John. If you finance a car, the dealership makes, $3,000-$4,000. If you just pay cash, they're going to make hundreds of dollars, maybe $1,000. So they're making way less if you pay cash. They're making money off the financing deals. If they can get you to finance, they get kickbacks from the lenders. They have their own financing. They're making money from that. And so it's actually increasingly difficult to buy a car with cash. Now, this is not your excuse, America, to go, well.
That's actually true. I was
going to say, I'm kind of with him on that whole part, especially the dealer financing part of it. That definitely takes advantage of those with lower credit scores that cannot get traditional financing at a financial institution. Higher rates.
Well, that's not really the issue with the car dealership, though. So what happens is like the gas situation. You can't, as a dealership, if I'm just selling cars, right, I'm not making that much money because the prices are all transparent anymore. It's all online. I can't mark up the cars that much because if I do, the guy next to me is not gonna, and I'm gonna get tagged, right? So the car prices, I can't really mark up that much. Like he said, I might make a few $100, right? Selling you the car. That's a lot of effort and a lot of work for a very little amount of money because I got to pay people to be out there. They get commission, all that stuff, right? So the real money comes from financing the car, right? Because I'll get a kickback from the bank for signing the loan of a couple grand, right? And then the other stuff is like the docking fees, right, for the car, for housing the car, getting gap insurance through the car dealership, right? Gap coverage on damages or maintenance to the car. And then things like accessories, stuff like that to the car. Undercoating is like a big thing, stuff like that. So if I'm a car salesman or a car dealer and you want to come in and pay me cash, you're actually probably wasting my time and potentially costing me money. So when he's sitting there going, well, I can't believe they wouldn't take it. It's like, yeah, because there's nothing in it for them, really. Right? Yeah, it's great for you, John, but it sucks for the dealer. Right? And it's not like a grocery store, right, where you can just go in. You have to sign a contract when you get a car. There has to be, they can discriminate on whether or not they want to sell it.
But in all fairness, where, he's got a valid point is, seriously, if you don't want all the tack-ons and you just want the car,
Yeah,
you
but
really want to sit through the all-day ordeal of the attempt to sell all the stuff you don't even want. I mean, I wouldn't want to sit through all of that.
I'm not disagreeing.
Either.
I'm not disagreeing, but I'm saying that the business has a right to go, well, if that's what you want, go somewhere else.
There are businesses that that really do just do that are actually not proper dealerships. And actually, I think they're really cool business models. I remember when I was working at Lincoln, the financial institution I worked for, I did have relationships with services that were not dealerships proper, that they would, help you find and locate the car you want. They arrange to meet you, and you could test drive the thing, and they drop the car off for you.
Yeah, but he's treating, like I'm saying, there's a difference here. So in this guy, this is a legal difference too, right? So if you go to,
hit us with some legal stuff.
All right, if you go to a diner, right? They can say things like no shirt, no shoes, no service. They could say things like you're being disorderly or you're causing a problem. They can kick you out for that. They cannot kick you out for being African American. They cannot kick you out for being a woman. They cannot kick you out for being gay, right? They legally required, because they're a storefront like that, to do that, because they're selling a good at a fixed price. The car dealership is not selling a good at a fixed price. They're selling it at a negotiated price, right? So when you go to a car dealership, you're not going there to buy a cup of coffee. You're buying a vehicle, but they have to negotiate the price, and you have to come to an agreement. So there has to be a contract, whether it's verbal or written. When you deal in a contract, you can discriminate however you want, because you're not a public business. You're a private business. So like my business, I'm a financial advisor, a financial planner. Everything I do has to have a contract signed, right? I guess I could do it verbally, but I always sign a contract, right? So if you come in and I just don't like you for whatever reason, I can tell you I'm not going to work with you, and you can't sue me or do anything or complain. I have the right to refuse business. It could be I just don't like the way you look, or you just irritate me. You smell funny. I can be as prejudiced as I want. A car dealership has that right. But that's my point, is they don't really understand that concept. And the concept is, yeah, I come in there, just here's the check. It's like, I don't want your check. I don't make any money. I'm not required to work for you or give you what you want just because you have a check. Right? That's why they kept pushing it. Right? So it's a negotiation, and that's what he's having a problem with. It's not a transaction.
Right.
That's what their problem is they don't understand the difference.
Well, I'm going to go get a car loan because it's too hard to pay with cash. I'm not going to get a discount. You still have to pay with cash. You will not go into debt for a car. But here's my experience, John. I said, hey, yeah, I'm not going to finance. I was just straight up with them, which, problem number one, honesty. Shouldn't have done that. And they go, okay, well, it's going to cost you $1,000 more if you're going to pay in full. And I went, okay, well, I guess you're not getting my business then. And so I just said, hey,
let's be clear. The check you're about to write is a decent-sized check.
Yeah.
It's a good check.
Yeah, and so I said, here's what I'm willing to pay. You call me back if you can do that. Otherwise, it's the end of the conversation. And that's what happened. And I just got a text while we're doing the show that was like, hey, let's talk ASAP. I've got some updates for you. And so this is the digital version of the walk away. I don't even know
So
what
here's
that
what
is.
this comes down to. You just walk out of the dealership.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they
Yeah.
chase you out and go, no, John, come back in. And so here's what I want you to know. The person with the most patience, the most information, and the most options always wins.
Okay.
I
I don't believe that. I don't even
line, but
remote.
that was like a kind of a weird.
I don't remotely believe that story.
This always means that, like, okay.
Well, I don't remotely believe that story. And here's why.
That they texted him.
Yeah.
That they texted him, you mean? Okay.
Well, okay. So he's saying, "Well, you're not getting my business." He walks out, but he leaves them his phone number. Kind of a weird scenario.
But didn't he say? I thought he said that he told them,
Call me if you
hey,
change my mind.
do it for this.
No.
I feel like it was kind of implied. He was like, hey, if you could do it for this, let me know. Otherwise, I'm out of here. You know.
Well, he said, he said, I'm willing to pay you in cash. I'm not financing, right? And they said, well, we're going to charge you an extra $1,000 for that, which is not uncommon. That does happen. Usually, it's more than that. I don't know. They're being generous in my mind, but yeah.
We also don't know what price point the vehicle was at necessarily either.
We know it was a sizable check. Sizable. That's what John Deloney said. That's what Jocko was saying. Sizable check. What you have to understand is if he's saying, well, it comes down to who needs it more, right? Does the car dealership really need to sell that car at a $300 or $400 markup and get nothing else but the $300 or $400? Do they really need to unload the car that bad? Maybe, maybe not. I would doubt it. Right? It's not that much money in comparison to wait for the next guy where we can get a $3,000 to $4,000 markup. Well, not markup, but we can get the kickback from the bank and maybe get some of the accessories and other stuff. Why would I sell it to that guy? Especially when more than half of people finance anyway. Right? So the idea that, he left and, and I just got a text just right now, just like a minute ago, and they want me to come back. How did they get your phone number? You walked in, you gave them your phone number? He doesn't, it's just a weird, you're going to give a car salesman your phone number. It's just a weird thing to me. That's why I don't believe this story. It's just there's so many holes. This guy wouldn't last 2 minutes in an interrogation, I swear. I
think he maybe did give him the phone number. I'm feeling
he
like
might
I'm
have.
interpreting this story differently. I'm feeling like
I don't believe it. I'm just saying I don't.
Like the part where he said, I have no idea whether I think the dealer actually texted him or not, or the salesman texted him or not, but I do think it seems possible that he was like, listen, I'm not financing. This is what I'm willing to pay for this in cash. And if you can do it, that's cool.
Well, if you're willing to,
Here's my number. Text me if it turns out you guys can make that happen, or call me. Otherwise, I'm out because that's what I can do. I think that's possible.
Well, but he played it off.
He make the salesman my phone number.
Yeah, he played it off like he was more of a badass, though. Like he was like, "Oh, you don't want it? I'm leaving. Oh, I'm going this way."
Yeah, because it was like getting into like the walk away,
Yeah, it's the walk. I don't need you, but here's my phone number. That's not a walk away.
It's like, wait, is there like a walk away / pickup sort of thing that happens? Because it's kind of like that sort of thing. Like, I'm going to do the walk away, but here's my number. It's like the half break. It's like the half breakup lead on. It's like, we just can't be together. Blam, doors closed right now. Ooh, maybe later. Right. Right now? Yeah. Right now? I don't know. I don't buy the story, but maybe it's true. I don't know. Too many holes for me.
In any spending decision, when you're not desperate, you can make a better decision. When you have options, you can make a better decision.
When you're willing to walk out the door.
Yes. So,
but once again, we're assuming the car dealership doesn't have any options, which is where I don't buy this.
But you guys, do your research. There's so many avenues online to research the exact car you want. You will know more than the dealership does about that car by the time you walk in there. Number two, I want you to make sure that you know the exact value of your trade-in. And here's the thing: if you've got a trade-in,
Okay, now this is getting boring. Hang on.
you get the out-the-door price.
See, I'm like you. I'm like, hey, it's a cash deal. I'm going to walk out today with this car. I've already driven it a long time. Can we just not play it?
Yeah, so they do the Foursquare, and they go, we can get your payments down to whatever you want.
Yeah, not really that kind of guy.
No.
It's cool.
So here's what I want you to do. Go in with a cashier's check, maybe a little bit below the asking price. Here's what I want.
Okay. Well, at least I got to the point here I wanted. So, go in with a cashier's check. We don't want to play the game. They don't understand how a dealership works. Right? So it's kind of funny to me. So
I feel like they need to be just using one of those services like what I described, rather than going to a dealership anyway.
Go to Carfax, dude. If you're going to be this way, go to Carfax. That business, they'll just give it to you for whatever.
Right, one of those businesses where
it's volume. They don't.
I'm talking about where they basically coordinate via email, and the consumer already basically knows what type of car they want, and the person, that business just like finds it and drops it off for them.
Right.
Like, do that.
And they're just doing it by volume anyway, as opposed. That's what they want. These are not. These guys do. These guys are not guys shopping at Nordstrom's. They're shopping at Walmart for their clothes. Because at Nordstrom's, you're going to be there a while. You're going to have to deal with the salesperson. You're going to have to get shit tailored. Walmart, you can just pull it off the rack and take it to the register. That's what they want. So, that's cool. I'm down with that. That's fine. I'm just saying.
It's all fine. They're just shopping at the wrong place for it.
All right. So just to clarify, here's what they like. Just take a cashier's check and go there and just be a dick until they give you a car. It's kind of their. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's kind of what I got. Was just be obstinate until they give you the car, and if they don't give you the car, then go somewhere else and just keep doing that. But do your research, and that was kind of their strategy. I mean.
Yeah, it kind of seems like it was. I don't know if I consider it to be much of a dickhead thing.
Not a dick, just be obstinate.
Because quite frankly, I'm with them on that. If I don't want tack-ons of something, like when I'm at the movie theater, like I know it's only a quarter more for the large, but like I seriously am never gonna eat all that popcorn. So like I don't want it, And so if they don't want to go through all this stuff because they really don't want all the tack-ons, then I get that.
Yeah. Well, I skimmed through the Wall Street Journal article they were quoting, and it's mostly it was this couple guys who were seniors that were trying to buy in cash, and they felt like they got kind of bullied into this and robbed, and they probably did. I'm not going to knock it. It does happen. I mean, that's why car salesmen have a bad rap. Bad rap.
It's entirely possible.
No, but there was this one guy who did this, and he did this. This is a lot of what people that flip cars or do this kind of stuff will recommend when dealing with car dealerships. And he got it. He took the loan, but it didn't have any early payment penalties on the loan. So he just paid off the loan within like 15 or 20 days. But for taking the loan, they knocked an extra $1,000 off the car. So he ended up being plus another $1,000. So
okay, Duncan, before we even go on here, let's pause and use this moment as a strategy moment.
Sure.
Whether it's a car loan or any other loan, when you are getting into a loan situation, finding out if paying something off early translates into any sort of penalty is really important to do because it changes your strategy. And Duncan and I don't always see eye to eye on the whether you should pay something off or just keep making the payment or whatever. We're not always in total agreement. But regardless of which strategy you're taking, you definitely want to know if there's a penalty involved because it might change things for you.
Yes. Our number one mission statement philosophy is make sure you know the options. We're not here to tell you this is right or this is wrong. We just want to tell you these are what the options are. You got to figure out what you want to do.
And to understand the options.
And the risks.
We don't want people to get bamboozled, not realizing what it was they were getting into,
Right. So here would be my alternate strategy if I were John or George, Jocko or Skippy. If I were them and I'm going to buy a car in cash and I don't want to take out any loans or financing and I don't want to pay any extra fees or anything, right? I would not go there with a cashier's check. I wouldn't say anything about I want to pay in cash. I would go there and talk. Well, okay, we'll flip this. Lacey is me now in this scenario. I'm the car salesman. Lacey's buying the car. She doesn't want to. She wants to pay in cash. She doesn't want to pay any fees. She doesn't want to pay any accessories, Gap, the undercoat, the undercoat stuff. She doesn't want any of that. I just want the car for the money. That's it. Just like them, right? All right. So she comes to me. I'm the car salesman. I'm like, I do the schmooze. We test drive, blah, blah, blah. She likes the car. Cars. I have a car example here. So this car is $45,000 is the retail. But I'm like, oh, okay, well, but we have great financing and blah, blah, blah. And Lacey says, okay, well, no, Lacey doesn't say anything. She says, oh, okay, well, let's talk about that, blah, blah, blah. She says, well, 45 is a lot, probably I could probably afford 40 would probably be better for me. And I'm like, let me talk to my manager and do that whole spiel. And then come back, oh, we can do 40. Yeah. And then this is the financing kind of stuff and da-da-da-da-da. Then she's going to come talk to the financing guy, right? And this is what she's going to do. When she goes to the financing person is going to say, all right, Lacey, the retail price is $45,000. You negotiate it for 40. So 40 is what you're paying for the car. All right. You're going to pay whatever the tax is. I didn't factor in the tax here, but because I live in Oregon, so we don't usually do tax. But whatever the sales tax is, blah, blah, blah. But we'll skip that for now. Fees for the docking fees and other stuff for the car, that's going to be $1,000. And then I'm going to tell her, okay, and the Gap coverage of the car is going to be $500, and the accessory is going to be another $500. So I just made up numbers here. So the total is $42,000 that you're financing on the car, right? And Lacey's going to go, well, whoa, wait. I don't want to pay the fees. I want to pay $0. And I'm going to be like, well, but Lace, the problem is I have to charge you the fees. I'm kind of required to under the not just policy, but sometimes the law of the state requires that I charge the fee. Then Lacey's going to go, okay, well then charge me the fee of $1,000, right? But knock it off the negotiated price. So negotiate me down to $39, but then still charge me the fee, right? So she paid $0 the fee, but she got the $39. So now she's got the extra money there. So this actually, sorry, I did this a little wrong. This ends up being $40 still for Lacey. So she doesn't pay the extra $2,000. Right? And if she says, well, Duncan, though, so apologies for that slide. It was a little off, but I kind of slapped it together while we were watching that. So it was going to... Anyway, are you there, Lace? Oh, God.
And in the little boxes, but you're frozen. We're both frozen in the screen share. So I'm...
Okay, but you can hear me now, right?
Confused by that.
You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So that slide, I'm sorry, I slapped that slide together kind of in the last minute there, just to give an example, right? But essentially what Lacey's going to do is she's going to ask, though, when she takes the financing, is there an early payment penalty? Right? And if the guy says no, then she's going to say, great. So she's going to take the car for $40, get the finance, right? Finance the loan. And then she's going to wait a couple weeks. And then she's just going to call and pay off the $40,000. So now she's paid for the car in cash. She got a better deal, right? The car dealership got their kickback from the bank. The bank was the one who kind of got screwed here. But the bank wasn't physically there, so she didn't have to deal with it. As opposed to, I'm going to fight with the car dealer and fight with some guy selling cars on commission to try and screw him out of his commission and waste his time, right? And this way, if you're doing it that way, like they're doing it, they're not going to negotiate you down on the price because they're not getting anything anyway. But if I think you're financing it, well, it's worth it to me to negotiate it down.
I'm not gonna lie, Duncan. You kind of have me sold on your strategy here, because I'm admittedly not excited about the idea of having car loans. It's not really my thing. I don't really want to have them in general.
No.
I don't like less payments in my life. That's always been my thing. But I like your strategy. It gets a person paying less. The person can still be off of that loan. Plan to just turn around, pay that thing off.
Pay it off in a couple weeks. As soon as the loan
Right.
goes, as soon as it's live and you can make a payment, just, I'm just going to pay the whole thing. No early payment penalty. Okay. They can't say anything. What are they going to say? No. They can't say no. You have a contract that says you can do this.
Right.
So, kind of, they're putting their advice is kind of bad in the sense that you're going to end up paying more for the car. You're going to end up having to get in a big fight for it. You're probably going to have to go to a couple dealerships, right? And it's just going to be a big pain. As opposed to, why don't you just go there, negotiate it, pretend that that's what you're doing, do it, and then they get their kickback. The dealer's happy, the salesman's happy, right? You don't have to buy any extra crap you don't want. So you get the car for a lower price than they would have. And then you just pay off the early payment. What you maybe pay $50 in interest or something, $100 in interest at most, maybe in the worst case scenario.
But you were able to get them to negotiate the price down more than what that
But
is.
for a couple grand, yeah, at least.
Right.
Yeah, because if I think you're going to finance the car and get out today, and potentially get accessories and gap, but I don't know that as a salesman. I'll negotiate down.
Right.
Yeah. Because I'm more interested in the financing. I'm more interested in the other stuff. Because that's where my money comes from. It doesn't come from selling the car.
Right.
It comes from all the other crap. So, yeah. The other thing, too, is if you're going to buy from a private person, like somebody just selling their car, the only other thing I would recommend is take it. If you go to a mechanic, they'll usually charge you $100, maybe $200, sometimes $250, whatever. But they'll do an inspection of the car. So if you're going to buy a car from somebody you don't know, and it's just a cash arrangement, Lacey's is buying a car from me. It's in her best interest to say, let's take it to a mechanic and get an inspection. Right? That way if there's problems with the car, or if you need to negotiate the price down. The other thing is, if the car is a total lemon and I'm selling it, I probably know it's a lemon. So if she says, why would I take it to a mechanic? I'm probably going to be, I don't know that we should do that. And then she's going to know that I'm trying to scam her. So, yeah, that was all we had. We can wrap up right now. So that was our show. Thank you very much. Remember, everybody, please like and subscribe. We'd like your comments below. We really do appreciate them. If you catch that we said something wrong or that you think was inaccurate, please, let us know. We'll address it. Maybe hopefully next year, because it's getting in December. Maybe next year we can get guests or people want to call in. We can do some of that too. That'll be fun. But for our next episode, I think we're going to tackle some basic investing stuff for stocks and bonds and how those work. And kind of the risks associated. So,
that's a great idea.
Tune in for that one. Other than that, where can everybody catch you, Lace?
You can find me for courses, coaching, and articles on mysensewithsense.com. If you are interested in coaching services or courses, you can write into us for further information. Alternately, you can also send us topic requests, ask us questions, or send us some clips you'd like us to discuss.
Mm-hmm.
And where can they write into us at?
They can write us into at gossipfinancead@outlook.com. Also, if somebody's interested, I am taking clients temporarily right now, so they can, if they email us at gossipfinancead.com, I can get in touch with them and we can see from there. If it's a good fit, you never know. So thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you guys next time.